Hello everyone, my name is Frank, and if you've ever tasted limoncello, you know exactly how wonderful this elixir is. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make limoncello from beginning to end. And yes, on the internet there are tons of videos showing you how it's made, but I'm going to show you my process and how I learned it myself. Now, while I was visiting the Amalfi Coast in Italy, from where limoncello originates, I became motivated to make my own limoncello. After speaking with several limoncello makers in Italy, I noticed that their methods differed slightly from one another. So I compiled all this information and I was able to come up with what I found to be the best method that works for me. The only drawback, of course, was that the most important ingredient, the famous Amalfi lemons, also known by their proper name Santa Teresa Femminiello, are actually not available commercially in North America, as they're exclusively grown in the fertile volcanic soil of the Mediterranean coast. Nevertheless, good quality lemons can still be found to produce this wonderful elixir. Now, this tutorial will cover the making of regular limoncello, as well as Cream of Limoncello, which is one of my favorites. For regular limoncello, you'll need 4 ingredients. Of course, organic lemons, 95% alcohol, very important here, some water, and of course, some regular granulated table sugar. Now, I'll cover the quantities in detail in the second half of this video. But for now, let's talk about some of the tools that we're going to need for this. We're going to need a potato peeler or a grated zester or a grater, a zester, a normal zester, or just a regular kitchen knife. Now, I prefer to use the potato peeler. Everyone has their own method. Whichever one works for you to peel the lemons, go for it. Okay, guys, in this step, we're going to prepare our lemons for peeling. Now, of course, there are 2 types of lemons. You have the organic lemons, and then you have the regular store-bought lemons. The difference between the two is that organic lemons, they don't have pesticides that were used on them, and there's no wax coating. So they just need to be washed and scrubbed just to get some of the dirt and debris off of them. Now, if you are unable to get organic and you're using store-bought lemons, I would recommend that you find the lemons that have the thickest rind, because they're going to contain the most oils. Now, it's the oils from the lemons that flavor your limoncello, not the juice. We do not use the juice. And if you do buy store-bought lemons, they're going to contain a wax coating. So either way, they need to be washed. And what I do is I'll get a basin or I'll use my kitchen sink. I'll fill it with the hottest water that I can safely dip my hands into. And then I'll take the lemon and I'll immerse it in the water just for a few seconds. The heat of the water will soften the wax just enough for you to be able to take your vegetable scrub brush and give the lemon a good scrubbing so that you can remove all the wax and any debris that might be stuck to your lemon from the grocery store. Once you've done that, you just dry off your lemon with a rag. Now keep in mind that once you've removed the wax, your lemon's going to have a super short shelf life. So the next step is going to be done rather quickly. And once that's all done, we're going to get to the peeling. Now that the lemons have been washed and dried, we're going to peel them for the alcohol infusion. But before we do, I just want to touch base one more time on the wax coatings that you find on these lemons. Now, it's not terribly important if not all the wax comes off the lemon. The wax is, of course, food grade and therefore edible, but the problem with it is that it will likely form a sediment in the bottles once you place your limoncello in the freezer. You'll notice a sediment, a ring-like substance that's going to form on the neck of the bottle. That's just the wax. Again, it's edible. It won't change the taste of your limoncello, but it's always best to try to get as much of the wax off the lemon as you can. So now let's proceed with the peeling. A lot of people prefer to use the potato peeler method or the zesting method. Personally, I use the potato peeler method. I find that it's more consistent and I don't lose any of the oils from the lemon. The only problem I find with the zesting method is that as you're scraping away at the peel, a lot of the oils are spurting out all over the place, landing on your work surface or even on your tool, and these are precious oils that could be used in your infusion instead. So I'm going to put this away, and we're going to go ahead with the potato peeler method. Okay, let's begin. But just remember that a good potato peeler is key. Preferably a brand new one with super sharp blades. It's going to make it easier to take the rind off of the lemon. So what I'll do is I'll just slowly come across the surface of the lemon, and I'll peel just very lightly, and I will always avoid getting the white part of the lemon, known as the pith. Any pith that's going to be attached to your lemon peel will definitely cause your limoncello to become bitter. So as you can see, I have a beautiful rind here without any of the white part on it. And that's going to get tossed into my container and added to the alcohol a little later on. So as I continue to peel here, you'll see that I'm leaving the white pith behind, and I'm only taking the yellow part of the lemon. And you see how easy it is to peel, and it doesn't take very long at all. And within a minute, I've already got one lemon complete. And of course, be careful. Try not to cut your fingers with this because the blades are super, super sharp. So here are your lemon peels. You'll see that there is no pith on these peels. And the oil is inside the rind and completely intact. None of it on my work surface. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to peel the rest of these lemons, and then we'll get back to you with the next step. Okay guys, now that all the lemons have been peeled and they're ready for the infusion process, we will begin with that in a few seconds. First, I'd like to address a question that I noticed has been asked quite a lot online, and that is, what do we do with the remaining lemons? Well, as I stated before, we do not use the lemon juice in the infusion process. The lemon juice will eventually go rancid over time. Short term is fine, but this is truly not a limoncello if you use the lemon juice. What I would suggest, however, is that you juice your lemons, then transfer the strained juice into smaller containers or even ice cube trays and place them in your freezer overnight. You'll end up with these frozen cubes which you can use in many lemon-based recipes, including lemonade for those hot summer days, or even in tea with a little bit of honey. That being said, let's put this aside and move on with our next step. So let's grab our container here and begin the infusion process. We are simply going to introduce our alcohol to the lemon rinds. Now, I'm using 95% whole grain alcohol because it's tasteless, and at this strength, the alcohol will be able to extract the oils more efficiently and effectively rendering the peels completely dry, for lack of a better word. Some folks use vodka for this step, but vodka has a distinct taste that will be noticeable in the final product. Taste is, of course, subjective, so using vodka may be acceptable, especially if pure alcohol is not available in your area. Another thing is that 95% alcohol will get diluted when mixed with the water and sugar, and for limoncello, we want to get as close to 40% as possible for our final alcohol content. Below 40%, the alcohol will become thicker when kept in the freezer. At 30%, it'll begin to reach its freezing point, which we obviously want to avoid. However, if your dilution ends up below 30%, just keep it in your refrigerator instead. It'll be just as good. In my case, I'm adding 2 liters of alcohol, which will yield 5 liters or just a little over a gallon of limoncello once the final ingredients are added at the end. The amount of alcohol you use is entirely up to you. You'll just have to adjust the quantity of simple syrup or cream, as you will see later on. Now, it's very simple, folks. I'm just going to cap this off. Airtight container, of course. There we go. And then we're just going to give it a quick shake to coat all the peels before placing it in a cool, dark place like a basement or closet. Well, folks, it's time to put our peels to rest in a cool, dark place for 40 days. But remember, to shake the container once a day at least to disperse the oils evenly in the alcohol. Do not rush this critical step, as this is when the flavor develops. Don't worry if you go over 40 days, because once the oils have been extracted from the peels, the infusion process stops automatically. I'll see you guys in 40 days. Welcome back, everyone. Well, through the magic of video editing, our 40 days is up and we're ready to start the next process, which is finalizing our limoncello. Can't wait. So what we're going to start off by doing is straining the limoncello to get out all the impurities. And we want to do this by using a colander, just a regular colander, with a lining of cheesecloth, which will help to filter out all of the smaller particles that are floating in our limoncello infusion here. So here we go. We're just going to dump this all in here. And we're not going to worry if the peels actually fall into it. That's not an issue. We're going to strain this multiple times, guys, so don't worry about this. And it's looking good. The color is fantastic. Okay. All right, guys. So I've gone ahead and filtered all the peels, and you'll notice the wonderful, wonderful, beautiful color that has developed during the infusion process. This is liquid gold right here. So just wanted to let you guys know that I filtered this multiple times, and I did that, of course, through the cheesecloth and colander. Now, if I could only get this centered in frame here, you'll be able to see exactly how much of the particles was extracted by the cheesecloth, leaving the liquid 100% clear. And you'll also notice that my rinds here are completely devoid of all oils. In fact, if you listen carefully, you'll hear that the rinds are like potato chips, which means that they're completely dried out and they'll snap. This is a sure sign that the infusion process was a success. This is why we leave it for 40 days. Some people leave it for less. Everyone's got their own way of doing it. But 40 days I find is the perfect amount of time for the infusion process. So now what we're going to do is we're going to prepare the simple syrup, guys. And I'm going to show you how to do this over at the stove. Okay, guys. So for this recipe here, I'm going to be using 2 liters of the alcohol fusion. And I'm going to use 2.5 liters of distilled water. Now, why do I use distilled water? Well, I'm using organic lemons, so why not keep everything pure? If you guys don't have access to distilled water, you can use spring water or filtered water, which is just as good. Tap water will do. I'm not too thrilled about using tap water. It contains too many minerals, but it will do in a pinch. So now I'm just putting the water to boil, and once it starts to boil, I will add the sugar, and I'll wait for it to completely dissolve before we proceed to our next step. All right, so now that our water is actively boiling, we're going to go ahead and we're going to pour in all of our sugar, 1.4 kilograms of sugar. And we're just going to give that a little stir. We'll bring that back up to a boil. And once it comes back up to a boil, we'll turn the heat off and we'll let this simple syrup cool completely 100% to room temperature. Guys, very important. If you don't let this cool down, the heat from the syrup will evaporate your alcohol. So we shall wait for this to come to a boil, and then we'll turn the heat off. All right, guys, while we're waiting for our syrup to cool down, I wanted to take a moment and show you what we're going to be using for our next step and our next limoncello, which is the cream of limoncello. I know you guys are excited to see this, and frankly, so am I. You're going to need some whole milk. You're going to need some heavy whipping cream or cooking cream, 35% preferably, and of course some sugar. The quantities, in my case, for my recipe, I'm going to be using 1 liter of the alcohol that we used for the infusion, 2 liters of whole milk, 500 milliliters of the cream, and 1.5 kilograms of sugar. I will go ahead and show you how to do that, the syrup process in a moment. I also wanted to explain why we're using cream. A lot of people have asked why cream if we're using whole milk. Well, the reason why we use cream is because, as anyone who's ever accidentally or purposely put milk in the freezer knows, milk will separate in the freezer, and that's not good. So what the cream does is the cream helps to stabilize the milk in the freezer so it stays uniform and doesn't coagulate. So this is the reason behind that. Now, as an added bonus, because I had a little bit of extra alcohol for the infusion, I went ahead and prepared myself a small container of oranges. So I'm going to be doing an orangecello, but more specifically, a cream of orangecello. And that's going to be done in this video as well as an added bonus for you, and to see at the end how it turns out. So also one other thing I wanted to show you guys and to explain is why we want our alcohol to be 40%. Well, this is the reason, guys. So in my freezer, this has been sitting in my freezer for about 2 years. This is regular limoncello. And this here is the cream of limoncello. Now, as you can see, I don't know if it comes out well on camera, but neither of them is frozen. They're both liquid. Except my regular limoncello has lost a little bit of its creamy yellow color. It's gotten a little bit on the translucent side, let's call it. It's weakened a little bit, but the flavor is there and it's still good. And trust me, you'll still get a buzz from this, the cream of limoncello as well. This is the importance of having 40% alcohol by volume for your final product. You can go as low as 30, 35. It'll start to thicken up a little bit, but on the safe side, I always try to get targeting around 40%. Now, I also wanted to show you one other thing. Coming back from Amalfi, while I was there visiting, I purchased in one of their many souvenir shops this bottle of limoncello, commercially marketed by the Pellini brand, and can be found just about anywhere along the Amalfi Coast. And this is what you could find commercially in the stores, probably in the liquor stores or anywhere that sells liquor in your area. What I wanted to point out was that these liquors that are sold in the liquor stores are only 26% alcohol by volume. And that is not enough to prevent it from freezing. Now, I don't know if you can tell on the camera, but this is a block of ice, guys. Now, this particular brand of limoncello also contains added coloring so that it doesn't lose its bright yellow color. But I think it's still very tasty as long as you keep it in the refrigerator instead of the freezer. This is, of course, what happens when you do put it in the freezer. And at 26%, that's the result. So this is why I stress, guys, 40%. Let's go for 40%. All right, guys, we are nearing the end here. We have our lemon-infused alcohol, and we have our cooled syrup, and now we're ready to combine the two. So we're going to start right now with the regular limoncello and the simple syrup that we just cooled down. And let's get started. This is where the magic happens, folks. What a beautiful color. Can't get any better than this. All right, guys, for our cream of limoncello, we're going to go ahead and add 2 liters of whole milk to the pot. And we're also going to add 500 milliliters of heavy cream, 35%. And we're going to turn this on medium-high heat. And what we're going to do at this moment is we're going to add the sugar right now. We're not going to wait for the milk to boil because we don't want it to boil. So we're going to add all the sugar, which is, in this case, 1.5 kilograms of sugar. And we'll give it a complete stir to help the sugar to dissolve. And at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to wait for the milk to just get to the boil. So when we start seeing the bubbles, that's when we're going to turn the heat completely off. And we're going to let it sit until it also cools to room temperature. All right, guys, when you start seeing the bubbles and the frothing, this is when you're going to turn the heat completely off. Give it one last stir. And we're just going to put it aside to let it cool off to room temperature completely. And also an important note is that you would want to be stirring this very often during the heating process to avoid a skin forming on the surface of your cream. So now that this is done, let's put it aside and move on to our next step. All right, we're going to move on to our next one now, which is going to be our cream of limoncello. I'm just going to put this aside. And we'll move this guy over here nice and carefully. And we'll bring this one here to the forefront. Good. So now we have our cream, which is cooled down to room temperature. And we're just going to add it to our infusion. And there we go, folks. What a beautiful cream color. Give that a bit of a stir. Look at that wonderful color. And of course, last but not least, we are going to do our orangecello. And here we go. Oh, beautiful. I'm going to add the rest once I get a bigger container. But folks, oof, wow. My first time making orangecello, by the way. Incredible color. I'm extremely impressed. Okay, so let's see if we can get you a closer view. This is my regular limoncello. And then there's my cream of limoncello right here. And then there's my cream of orangecello. Unbelievable. So guys, the next step is we're going to bottle these things and get them in the freezer. All right, so let's start putting these away. Now the cream of limoncello is going to have to sit in the freezer for about a week or a week and a half because it still has to thicken up a little bit. Whereas the regular limoncello is good to go. You can drink it as is. The flavors have fully developed. It's not going to thicken up in the freezer. So if you want to just chill it and drink it, that's the way to go. Now, when you're filling the bottles with the cream of limoncello, you're not going to want to fill it to the top. You're going to want to leave some room for expansion because as it sits in the fridge, it will thicken up. It will take up more room in your bottle. So you want to give it a little bit of breathing room. I think that's more than enough breathing room. All right, everybody, we've come to the end. All of our limoncello is bottled, and let me give you the final numbers. For our regular limoncello, I started off with 2 liters of alcohol-infused lemons. To that, I added 2.5 liters of water and 1.4 kilograms or 1,400 grams of sugar. All that yielded 5 liters of the regular limoncello. Now for the cream of limoncello, I started off with 1 liter of alcohol, 2 liters of whole milk, and 500 milliliters of 35% cream was added to that, as well as 1.5 kilograms or 1,500 grams of sugar. And that yielded 4 liters of the cream of limoncello. Now, for the cream of orangecello, really excited about this one, folks, my first time making it. I started off with 750 mLs of alcohol, 1.5 liters of whole milk, 375 mLs of 35% cream, and that yielded 2.5 liters of cream of orangecello. And I can't wait to see if I can fit all this in my freezer. All right, guys, I hope you like this video. I'm looking forward to making more in the future, but for now, I'm wishing everybody good luck in making their limoncello, and I hope your production was as fruitful as mine. Chin chin. Nice. Hey guys, I almost forgot to mention that if you enjoy making limoncello or are considering making it for the first time, you got to check out my Facebook page by looking up Limoncello Lovers. We're a growing community of people from all over the world sharing their knowledge and experiences of everything lemon. We welcome all newcomers to add their success stories as well as their, well, less successful attempts. We will get you back on track. Cheers.